more into that, you can also talk to Khawla Matar later and discuss. Before that, we go to our next speaker, human rights lawyer, president of the Syrian Center for Media and Freedom of Expression, Mازن Dرويش, a very prominent lawyer. Mازن, you have been also detained and have been at the forefront of the prosecution of cases in Europe against regime officials for war crimes using universal jurisdiction. For all the crimes committed in Syria, including famous cases like the disappearance of Razan Zaitouni and her colleagues, can you tell us about the efforts of Syrian organizations to collect evidence and prosecute cases in European courts? And additional to that, what should be done? What do you think, what should be done on the international level?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jafar. And I'll switch to speak in Arabic, as usual.
First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for having extended this invitation to me, and thank you to the wonderful women Hiba, Wafa, and Noura, the Syrian women who are here. Because you are here, because there are women like you who are here, I think, and I think that I speak on behalf of many, I believe that the future will get brighter. One of the challenges we face is that there has been no political transition based on UN Security Resolution 2254. So we cannot deal with what has happened in the past when crimes continue, especially crimes committed by the Syrian authorities, which bear the responsibility for 85% of the crimes. The fact that vetoes are used at the UN to block justice in Syria is one of the challenges that the Syrian people face and the international community. And also, justice is used as a weapon against political opponents. And considering that anyone who is against us is a traitor. So justice, which should be a tool for justice, is a weapon of war. But justice is an essential component to achieve sustainable peace and coexistence. However, there are concepts which distort the concept of justice and protect it from being used as a weapon in sectarian conflicts. Despite all of these challenges, the efforts that the victims have made in cooperation with international organizations and civil society organizations through using local justice or international justice has turned into a movement in a way, calling for protecting victims in Syria. Even though the court cases we have seen are not justice in and of themselves, but they call attention to the rights of victims and to the need for negotiation. And there are efforts towards not allowing the parties involved to engage in a political reconciliation which will not take into account the needs and rights of the victims. Because if that happens, a peace agreement in the future, or peace agreements in the future, could be only ceasefires without any true justice. There has to be sustainable peace in Syria. And international efforts, therefore, serve the good of the international community. The effort should be made not just out of compassion for Syrian victims, but to bring peace to the region and the world, and to put a stop to the use of chemical weapons by the Syrian regime against civilians with impunity. If there is impunity, there will only be more crimes, more terrorism, and more refugees spread out throughout the world. We need to work on two parallel tracks. I would like to echo what my colleagues said previously. So the first track is to put a stop to the violations and crimes which take place daily and to support the efforts of the victims to obtain the truth. And second, we need a binding agreement from the UN Security Council for a ceasefire throughout Syria. So for the creation of an independent international mechanism to uncover the fate of the forcibly disappeared, and a resolution which forces all of the parties involved to stop the death penalty. The death penalty should be put under moratorium. The ICRC and other international bodies should be protected, and the Mandela rules should be applied to detainees. Lists should be produced of the detainees and the charges on which they were detained, and there should be a moratorium on imposing the death penalty against them. We should concentrate on humanitarian priorities. We should put as a priority children, women, and the elderly. We should save evidence and DNA and return bodies to their families so that they may be buried with dignity. If we want to engage in trust-building mechanisms, if we want political solutions, then we must begin by applying what I just mentioned before we do anything else. The second track is to support efforts to achieve justice and accountability. This can be done by supporting the efforts of Syrian organizations and creating complementarity with the United Nations system. Local courts and international courts should participate. We should make it easier for victims to reach justice, and we must include women in these processes. Because of the courage of one Syrian woman, we were able to bring to court a case concerning the use of chemical weapons. And as I speak to you, there is another Syrian woman who is providing her testimony before a court. We must support the efforts of local organizations. We must give them financial and human resources so that they can do their work. We must give all forms of material, political, and logistical support to any body trying to work on the prosecution of crimes against human rights. For example, Razan Zaytoun was given the Sakharov Prize by the EP for her work on human rights. But at the same time, there are some European countries which are giving support to those who kidnapped her. This is unacceptable. I shall try to be brief, but I would like to repeat, these measures are not justice. These are the alternative means we use to try to achieve justice. The road to justice will be long and strenuous, but it's possible. But we must begin with the measures I outlined, and we must do them to a minimum, or do the minimum. Thank you very much.